I got my microphone all messed up here. All right, we will call this meeting to order. And tonight's, there we go. All right, just one item on the work session this evening. I know I was 1 minute late. I saw you looking. And then I'll give you back, because now I see you have notes on this. There you go. Crystal saved me here. Oh, now I don't need three of them. They all kind of look the same. The only item tonight is discussion of a planning commission member composition. And really this question came about in the fact that, I'll go ahead and take this over since that was my item there. The ultimate question will be whether or not council would be willing to consider having 2 residents in lieu of having 2 members of the governing body on the planning commission. Right now, the planning commission is a recommending body for most everything they do, except for the approval of the master plan, an appendix to the master plan. And you can correct me, what else is the planning commission the final approver on? Is this just all master plan related stuff?
Yeah, sometimes there is
Yeah, I better hit you on the mic there.
Okay. So planning commission usually are responsible to review preliminary plats, final plats.
But they're the recommending body on those. Yes.
They are final decision maker on the site plan. Sometimes there are site plans that need to go to planning commission, approved by planning commission. And then other than that, usually planning commission, they don't have final says on anything else. They do make recommendation on zoning code amendment. That's as far as I'm aware.
Okay.
And the master plan, like the mayor mentioned, yeah.
Thank you. So, yeah, so the final approval on the master plan. And so it seemed kind of redundant to me to have 2 members of the governing body both recommend and then receive the recommendation and then approve that same recommendation itself. Seemed that we might be better served expanding the amount of resident input onto the planning commission as the recommending body, which is where that question, okay, Councilmember Smith, what is fire away here?
As the current member of the governing body on the planning commission, I wholeheartedly endorse bringing some more residents in and getting me out of the way.
We can always do it one of 2 ways, though. So obviously we can expand the planning commission and just add more residents. Or in lieu of appointing a council member and having myself serve on it, we could have 2 residents serve in that place. Councilmember Saper. Yeah, microphone. There
And
you go.
that people are going through the Citizens Academy and actively wanting to participate. We're getting broader participation and more active participation, and it seems to me almost a no-brainer to do that.
And I'd just add, generally what I've seen, now I handpicked a few cities, you start looking at like Parkville, Riverside, Gladstone, some of the ones that are normally the comparables. As long as their data was updated on their website, I really didn't see any governing body members serving on. Now Riverside, that was the trickiest. The other ones I didn't notice any. Riverside's list maybe appeared to be outdated, so it'd be hard to say. But the other ones didn't look like any governing body members also serving. Councilmember Graves.
How many, I got a couple quick questions, just for clarification. How many applicants are currently on the planning commission?
On my laptop.
If you can, you don't have it?
Yeah, I don't know.
You can look it up and answer later.
maybe-
if you
yeah,
want.
I
I was just curious, and because
Usually there's plenty. I mean, that's one of the boxes that people probably check. 2 boxes people check most frequently, I'll say, is Parks and Recreation and Planning Commission are usually the top 2 that most everybody applies for. Because a lot of people will just put in an application, check everything. So I would say the most current applications is amongst Parks and
the other thing I had a question about is, or do we keep track of attendance? Like people have noticed there's meetings where there's like people missing frequently. Wasn't
ultimately
this
you could do it through the minutes. I don't think we keep a specific record at the moment. Because also there's no real apparatus at the moment to have someone removed from the planning commission.
I would be in favor of replacing governing body people with the public. I wouldn't really be in favor of expanding the number of people.
Yeah.
I do think it would help with attendance if there's a couple people missing and they're replaced by other residents. I would rather that.
I think one that's been frequently missing, I do believe, rolls off fairly soon. But most people have at least a decent, I believe, attendance record outside of one.
I don't
To the
know
best
if
of
this
my
is related. I don't really want to go off topic, but like I was just looking at the list of people on boards right now, and like we say that there's a bunch of applicants, but there's like vacancies on different boards, and I don't know why is there vacancies on like equity and inclusion, for example. There's a Ward 3 vacancy and a Ward 4 vacancy.
So the
I'm
Ward
pretty
va-
sure have been there for a long time.
Sorry, the Ward 3 vacancy just occurred at the last meeting, at the last month. And then the Ward 4 vacancy I believe that sits, is that with Anna's seat or Amy's?
Well, I know what was happening before is that someone that was in Ward 3 technically became Ward 4, and so we had the 2 Ward 4
Yeah.
filled with a vacancy in 3, but then the person in Ward 4 said they didn't feel comfortable continuing, and so now there's 2 vacancies.
And I'll probably get a little out of scope and I'm gonna get in trouble here. But Anna did bring up a good point, and maybe we diversify that a little bit further and say maybe there's one in district per se and one at large for each council ward. That way 4 members could be from any ward, if one ward kind of struggles to pick someone out. That's the concern, is that Ward 4 seat has been, I think, harder to fill than most. I believe I probably have applications for most other wards at the moment related to ESC, but Ward 4, I don't believe I have any others. And you guys have advertised it and tried to get people, and it's just kind of, it's been tough to get people to.
So I guess, like,
Yeah.
going back to my
Sorry.
point is, just to kind of circle back, so there are, like, we're not, some of the people in the public, I'm saying this, like, we all know this sitting here, but the public doesn't realize that the council members don't have access to applications. So we have no idea, how many applicants there are, unless, like, for the EIC, you know, like Saper and I were given a list of applications of people within our ward. But when it comes to these other boards, like, I have no idea if there's 0 or 50 applicants.
Yeah, I think there should be some distinction there. You know, I have sent and forwarded at least, I think I did it in bulk, and if we get new application, I'd send you new applications, at least really DIC, because that's what you guys can all appoint. So I've made sure you guys have had all of those. In terms of other appointments, it's still, in the end, appointments that I do get to make, and it could be a very broad appointment. It doesn't always have to come from the list. So if I have a Parks and Rec opening, it doesn't just have to be someone off the list at that moment either. I can always continue to inquire, elicit for more applications. I think that's where the struggle is, because some people want to look at the list and say, no, it needs to be someone from this list. But that's not necessarily the case. I could look at the list myself and say, well, hold on, maybe I'd be interested in having this person and have them apply as well.
While I'm thinking of it, before I forget, one other request that I have, that I don't know if other council members would find this helpful, but you brought it up, like, on the EIC, how you had a member drop off. Can we be alerted? Like, we're alerted when there's people put on boards because we have to vote on it, but we're not alerted when someone drops off a board, when there's a vacancy. I think that would be helpful for multiple reasons. One, as you mentioned, like, we can advertise that vacancy if we know somebody that might be interested, things like that. So could
I agree.
we
I
even-
agree. We can work on
Yeah,
that.
just let us know, like,
No, that'd
hey,
be a
there's
good
a
one.
vacancy on the planning commission or the EIC for Ward 3. And just let us know, maybe even just shoot an email and just say, hey, a vacancy just opened up.
I 100%
FYI.
agree.
Okay.
We can work on that. All right, did I generally hear favorable and exploring? I think I might still need a little bit of legal work here unless he's fully fleshed that out over here. Tom? That's a good answer. Okay, thank you. No, that is something we can do, correct? We would have the ability to have 2 additional residents in lieu of a council member serving and the mayor serving. Did you really look into that yet?
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry.
The entire point of tonight's work session, whether or not we can replace the appointed council member and the appointed mayor position with 2 residents.
Yes,
that
I
we
mean,
can-
you can absolutely, there's no reason you cannot do that legally. There could be some practical things. I mean, you know, after you talked to me about this, Mr. Mayor, because I certainly didn't consider myself an expert on planning commission matters, I decided that I ought to do a little research. I read some law review articles, et cetera, regarding this. And this statute that we've adopted, like I was involved in it, that the state of Missouri adopted, is actually based on what's called the Standard City Planning Enabling Act, that's been adopted by most states in the United States. And in that, what it does, and if you have a planning commission, if you elect to go that way, this applies to all cities then that do that in the state of Missouri, including charter cities. So this is no different than other cities in the state of Missouri if they've elected to do this. Moreover, when you were talking about what power and authority they have, specifically summarized the power to coordinate development of the municipality, including public improvement approval, subdivision regulation, plat approval, and approval of streets and related improvements. Planning, as envisioned in these statutes, is a much more comprehensive concept than zoning, covering all facets of the municipality's development. And it was pointed out that's one reason why it's not atypical to have a council member on a planning commission. But as the statute is clear, it's may. The mayor may, and by the way, that is not the council choice, because the way I read the statute, get it back in front of me, the mayor, this is who's on it, the mayor, if the mayor chooses to be a member, okay? And then a member of the council selected by the council if the council chooses to have a member on the commission. So it's going to be a little bit of wordsmithing, I think, to make this worded right, to make the change. Not impossible at all. And, you know, the discussion really for you is your choice, et cetera. It's not something legally that I'm going to tell you this is a bad idea. I'm not going to do that at all.
So on the may portion of that, council may at any point, so if we have to change our ordinance to say that we're appointing 2 residents, the may would still apply, because at any point, the council could again change the ordinance to re-put.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, and right now, that's kind of the difference between state statute and our ordinance, is our ordinance says we are appointing someone every year.
Absolutely, because
The mayor is on it, whereas it says
Exactly.
may in state statute.
Exactly. And the way we want to reword it, I would think, is to word it more closely to this, unless you tell me differently, and then you just make the choice and the decision. You make it, and the council makes it. And I need to think how that works best, and I'll certainly coordinate it with you folks as I do that. Probably will even send out a draft before we bring it to you so you can see it, to make sure I'm not putting something in it that none of you intend.
Yeah, got it. Okay, so overall, fairly simple topic. Okay, there we go. Councilmember Toll.
Would it be your intention to have a liaison and non-voting member assigned?
If that's what you guys want to do. I very briefly thought about it. I didn't actually really finish that. I don't know. If someone wants to come to the meetings or watch the meetings, they could, or be a non-voting member. I'm not opposed to that.
Do you think, Jesse, as somebody who's on it right now, do you think that that would be useful to have someone from council that's been at the meetings?
I don't, because any action that comes from the planning commission comes to us with a summary of their discussion and action, and a recommendation from, and then we have the meetings to go back and watch if we want more depth. It doesn't seem like a really functional piece to have a liaison to the board.
Oh, I saw Councilmember Smith, and then I saw Safer there.
So,
Or was that a-
given what you said there, it seems that we could just copy and paste the state statute, fill in North Kansas City. The only caveat that I would possibly make is, given that the council could at some point decide, and the mayor could at some point decide, we could say not more than 13 citizens,
Let's stop
leaving
it.
the 2.
I'd stop at 9.
Yeah,
nine
nine's
fits
fine.
at this dais quite comfortably.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
so if we
terms
did
of
set,
space.
not more than 7
Yeah.
citizens, and then it would give the 2 seats if
Because
the
that would work
council.
exactly up to 9, right?
There you go.
There we go.
Math.
We're set up for that, so there we go. Unless we're reconstructing up here and we're going to expand the dais. Then to say it again. Further council member discussions? Was there anything? Okay, sorry, Councilmember Graves.
Just another question. How do these, noticed on here, Planning Commission has 4-year terms. So are these, like, let's say somebody resigns from the Planning Commission and a new person's appointed. Do they take over that person's term, or is that a fresh
Yeah.
4-year term?
They would
Or
fulfill an unexpired term.
They-
Yeah,
They must finish out the term, yeah, or otherwise you won't have staggered terms is what you want to have. So they would simply finish out the term of, if there's 2 years left, they'll finish out 2 years, and then
So-
if they're reappointed, it'll be then for a 4-year term.
let me ask a follow-up, and maybe the direction you're going here is if we appoint 2 new people, and you probably haven't looked at this yet, how would you anticipate staggering those 2 new people? See what I'm saying? You'd appoint 2 people, you'd want them staggered in some sort of way.
Yes.
Would they just
yes.
start with 4-year terms? Would they start with a 2-year term, you know? Or would that just
Exactly.
be up to council, I guess?
We'll figure that out. I need
figured
to
out.
look at what the terms are now
Yeah.
of everybody else and figure out how that is. I do know this, that we as the city do not have the legal ability, and the law is clear on this, to amend what amounts to the state statute and how this is set up and operating. Some cities, I've found out, have gotten themselves in trouble, and the main way you find yourself in trouble is this: an improperly appointed planning commission takes action on something, and let's say it's something significant, and someone challenges it, and they found out that they are not properly following the procedures, then that action is determined to be invalid. And if work has already been done or something, that could create some real legal problems. So we just need to follow. I'm not trying to alarm anybody. Could happen today, the way it's structured right now.
Yeah.
That won't change any.
Fantastic, thank you. Oh, Councilmember Graves.
Yeah, that's where I was going with this, is I was trying to wrap my mind around how the terms work, how they're staggered, if they are staggered. Because you would want some type of continuity. You wouldn't want just like all of a sudden a brand-new planning commission come in and nobody knows what's happening. And then the other thing, this isn't really a question, it's just thinking out loud, like I was trying to think of like the other side, like what would be the negative ramifications of this? And I'm assuming that if you're a resident, then, you know, residents vote for us, right? So if they don't like us, then they can not vote for you. Whereas planning commission people are not really accountable to the residents. And so I'm just throwing that out there. I'm assuming that, no one's told me this, I'm just brainstorming. That's the only thing I can think of that's like negative, is that the planning commission's not really accountable to the residents. So if they're doing things that the people don't like, they can't really be, like, can you throw them off?
Well, there.
Can you kick
Well,
someone
hold on.
off,
There's a lot of
basically?
things. Yes, the removal process, yes, there is a removal process. I do believe they have to have an opportunity to have some sort of I'm going to say hearing, for lack of a better term off the top of my head, some sort of hearing, I think, before city council. They have to have some sort of opportunity, I think, to defend themselves, but
Yeah,
Councilmember.
yeah, just to that point, their recommendations then come to the council, which is the check on that.
But as you know, when stuff comes before the council, we get it pushed on us by city staff, and they say, "Oh, it was approved by the planning commission." So it's, you know what I'm saying? We're kind of in a way. Yeah, I mean, as you know, I oftentimes vote no on things, but I get flack for it at times. So I mean, we're at times expected to just rubber stamp what comes out of the planning commission. So I was just curious, you know, if the planning commission does get, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but if it does get crazy and they're out of line, is there a way to rectify that?
Well, what-
Because the public can't.
Kind of the broader point, it's not going to be an all-new planning commission either. The same 5 that are currently appointed would remain on there. It'd just be an additional 2 seats. And ultimately, I do believe that there's some accountability there, because I do appoint and you guys do approve. And so that is people, they still have some sort of apparatus to say, why are you approving these people, or why are you appointing these people? And so an election would still apply. There's one step further away, I guess, from the planning commission, but there is still, I believe, a step there. In terms of just negatives overall, kind of struggle on the negatives. I mean, maybe to the liaison point would be the one, maybe negatives that you weren't sitting there through that, but I do kind of, as you know, kind of struggle on that. Councilmember Smith.
So just to be very clear, there is no pushing on us by city staff, and there's no expectation that we rubber stamp things that are approved by planning commission. That is not the case. We make our own independent decisions on recommendations. Oftentimes, these are qualified and bright people who make these recommendations, so we do often agree, but we are well within our right to go against their recommendation.
How long is it? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, let me clear up one thing that Mr. Graves brought up. I knew I read it, I just didn't see it right away. The council may remove any citizen member for cause stated in writing and after public hearing.
There we go. I got part of it right. I said hearing. Okay, further council member comments? If not, then I will have, sounds all right, have Tom draft up a ordinance at some point in the near future and bring that back before the council. Any other things you would be looking for, Tom, before I adjourn this here?
No, like on this one here, I think I'll try to send out a rough draft to the council just to make sure you folks feel that I've understood what you want to do. And please understand, I'm going to shoot for the first meeting in December. The 15th is like, I'm up to here in stuff trying to get on that particular agenda.
We're going to see what your capacity is here. We're going
So
to max you out.
if I get it to it, I will, Mr. Mayor, but I can't promise that it'll be on
No.
the next agenda.
I would not mark this as an emergency ordinance in any sort of way, so we have the direction now, and you're going to go forward with that. Further council member comments? Seeing none, adjourn. Thank you.